Hey, it's Kenny Sargent.
And I'm Crash Gladys, and then there's this guy.
Hey, I'm Mario Andretti, and I'll tell you what, be sure you listen to these guys because they're the only ones that can carry my jack strap.
Freak Nation, it's been known that we've been celebrating 20 years for the last, year or so, and we're going to continue to celebrate 20 years in the Freak Nation. And what we're wanting to do is bring in some of the Freaks faves, honorary Freak Nation members. And of course, one of those who's joined us many, many times over those 20 years, of course, in my eyes, maybe Stats and Crashers too, the greatest driver in the history of mankind, at least here in the States, Mario Andretti. And Mario, what's more impressive to you, that we've survived the last 20 years or that you have survived the last 20 years?
Oh, my God.
Probably both. Gosh, congratulations. You know, I remember you guys, you looked like a couple of teenagers right out of high school for the first interview, and Crash is even cuter now. I don't know what Kenny, but looks like looks like you survived it well. I mean, let's face it, you survived through 9/11, the Iraq Afghanistan war, SARS, and now COVID. So you know what? When you survive all of these pandemics and wars and everything else, man, you certainly have another 50 years ahead of you.
50. Oh my.
Yes, sir. You too, Stat.
Yeah, even Stat, man. Whenever it comes time, I'm going to say that Mr. Andretti gave me the another 50 years, and I'm standing by that. Speaking of years, your book. I wanted to ask you about your book. I read that about a month ago. How's that coming? How's that project?
Well, you're probably talking about my memoirs, which I took advantage of devoting time due to this lockdown that we've had. I figure otherwise I'll never do it, and I pretty much I got talked into it a little bit, but again, take advantage, as I said, of the time that's available now, because they just don't let me go out, but other than that, we're still very busy, but we're Zooming all over the world, as you can see. And not a day goes by that I'm not interviewing somewhere, somewhere either here and, around the world. So seems like everybody's just itching to get, all of the journalists around the world, they're all idle per se, motorsport journalists. And so everyone wants to get some opinions here and there. And so we're out there. We all have a little bit of a story to tell, even though it's boring at the moment. But things are beginning to look up and to be, positive about. Obviously, it's tough nowadays, but that's what we have to do. We have to stay and remain positive.
Are the memories coming easily? And I hope that somewhere in there, there's a memory for the SpeedFreaks. Dale Jr. found a couple of sentences for the Freaks. Maybe Mario can have a couple of sentences somewhere in there, especially about answering our phone when we had the office.
I'm sure we'll have a whole chapter on this. And you, Statman.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Statman, he wants it to be a New York Times bestseller. That means no freaks.
Oh, no, that's the way you become a New York Times bestseller, is to get some freak in the book. They'll fly off the shelf there.
You got it.
But Mario, you sounded like you were a little bit hesitant to do this memoir. Why? Because you do have so many stories going all the way back to when you and your brother were sneaking into racetracks in Pennsylvania. That's the meat of the story of how you became you that I love.
Yeah, I mean, there's a story to tell for sure. Things that have never been talked about on the personal side, and I just hate homework.
I get that.
This is homework. You got to do a lot of thinking, and so again, and it's you know, and it continues. You know, there's a lot of work to do here, so I'm probably looking for another year and a half before I get it all in.
Of course, Mario, over these 20 years when you've joined us, you mentioned some things in those 20 years, whether it was the the killing of Osama bin Laden, the election of a first black president, 9/11. Now we're in the pandemic situation, social unrest. But there are some positive things, including the first black president. But there are some positive things that have happened, and one of those is Indycar and CART getting back together. And you were on the forefront of that madness. Do you remember all that craziness that was going on between those two series?
Oh, indeed. I mean, that's just what it's right about before your time, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't mention that type of a pandemic. But yeah, that was a tough period, really. For one, that obviously, like myself and many others who love the sport so much, to see it to be fractured to that degree during those couple of years, you know, before everything started coming together, that was not needed, obviously, but it happened, and so you know, finally, a lot of things have come together since. Just the fact that now we have a new steward with Roger Penske, even you know, owning the series and Indy itself. I think that's a bright spot. I feel for Roger, obviously, that after you know, having exposed himself to that situation, you know, he has to deal with this pandemic. But you know, brighter days are ahead of us, and if there's anyone who can just push us through all this, it's him, Roger, and his team. And so I think we're at a good place. Like I said, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that's something to rejoice about, in my opinion. So once we get going, I think things will just pick up more and more, and we'll get some, you know, we get the fans back, and before you know, we'll be running with it, you know, normal. So I feel very positive about it.
What do you think is the bigger shock? The fact that the CART series split in '96, the fact that they got back together in the late 2000s, or that Roger Penske's at the helm now?
I think, you know, everyone has got a little bit of shock factor, you know. But the positive shock was Roger you know, making this move. I thought that was the best Christmas present for all of us. I was one of the first ones that at least he told me that he called the morning before he was going to make the official announcement, and I celebrated that day. I think I thought that that was a really positive move.
Is there a chance, if he called you again, that maybe you would step up and join him in the running and the operation of open wheel racing in America?
No, I really don't want a job in that respect. And if he says, "Would you drive one of my cars?" that would be different, you know. But to have an office and all of that, and having to report, no. I'll be a supporter in a different way. I'll always support the series in every way that I can. I love that so much, and as you know, as a dad, a grandfather, I have a lot of skin in the game. You know, with Michael, his team, and then you know, with Marco as a driver. So again, a lot of reasons to be very close to it, and keep you know, in any possible way contributing.
Look, Mario, enough about you. But seriously, no, seriously. You know, over the 20, come on, over the 20 years of us doing this thing, the thing that attracted us to you was you figuratively were giving the middle finger to people and doing it your way and winning championships and winning races and saying what you wanted to say, regardless of who you offended or who you impressed. When we started SpeedFreaks in June of 2000, that's how we started. And a lot of people took offense to it, but with Stat and Crash and special guests like yourself, we continue to trudge through it and prove that we belonged here. And it takes a lot of metal to prove to people, whether you're winning championships or bringing on radio affiliates, that you belong here because you're different, Mario.
Well, I mean, I've been known to have a big mouth, obviously, like you said, because I speak my mind, and especially on things that I really believe in. And so, when we're talking about the racing world as I know it, we're talking about so many careers. There's so much that can be gained or lost, to be lost, by doing the wrong things. And so anytime that I feel that something in my own, mind is going wrong, I'll just speak my piece, and so that's why I was not very popular during the split, with the CART and the IRL. But at the same time, I think what happened after that bears the fact that it was the wrong thing to do.
But how did things come back together then? Because, like you said, you were obviously on the CART side and helping Newman Haas Racing and seeing things from that angle. But I didn't realize that you became unpopular, so to speak. That's kind of shocking to me, even if you did speak your mind. So what was it then that led your son Michael, his team, back, and therefore you as well?
Well, I think the things started going forward when it became one. When they stopped trying to live the same. In other words, when you have both series pulling for the same thing, CART had all the good races, except that they didn't have Indy. The IRL had Indy and nothing else, and so either side had either side only had 50%, if you will. And it wasn't until that the reason prevailed and the whole thing became one, that we started going in the right direction, and that's what it took. But meanwhile, a lot of damage was done, and so you couldn't just pick up from there and say, okay, everything is back together. And because I think from that standpoint, NASCAR always, that they made a big leap forward by, Tony giving them the Indianapolis, brought them to mainstream immediately, and they took advantage of it. I mean, kudos to them. But they marginalized our series, IndyCar series, in that respect. And as you can see, the way the crowds were, and so on and so forth. So again, we paid the price, and slowly, I think a lot of things are coming back. Definitely in our direction. I think the series, from the standpoint of the product, is probably as well positioned as ever. The talent that's there today is, to me, second to none, right down the field. When you look at the veterans are still young enough, the champions are still young enough to be there for a long time. And then you have some young talents that represent the strong future. So, and that's everything, So, again, it's just a matter of now just getting to racing. And again, we have the right person, the right group. We know with Roger and his team to lead us, just like they did. I mean, Roger was part of forming CART, where USAC was going nowhere. And he brought CART, to the forefront. And, at one point, the CART series was televised in 120 countries, So again, we were the 900-pound gorilla. I mean, Formula One in the early, in 1990s, they were envious of CART, So, and things changed dramatically after that.
One of the things that has grown enormously in the past 20 years, besides the freaks, is virtual racing. And you have a simulator. Are you using it? Do you see any future for the virtual racing, going forward?
Well, Stat, I think that the future, to me, is probably on the off season. It definitely has become more and more popular, and now with a lot of the drivers being armed with these simulators, why not? You can go out there, and I go up there, and then I'm in Belgium one day, I'm in Italy next day I'm in Argentina driving, and I don't even need a passport, So it's amazing. I can choose different cars. I can be in Eldora, and the sprint car or whatever. So yeah, I mean there's a lot to be said for that. So technology is a wonderful thing when it's used properly. And yeah, this I think this virtual racing, I think it's definitely has a future, no question about it.
Does it have a future in your life, in your career? Your career doesn't have to end now.
I'm not going to commit a damn thing to you now.
I love it. I love it. That's
You know what? It's a lot of homework. You know what? It's some of these young guys. Like Sage Karam, for instance. Look, how long have you been on these simulators? He says, since about 2007. And how many hours do you have on there? Like 30,000.
Oh.
So I'm going to compete against somebody like that. You know what I mean? So it's, but again, it's another challenge, and I'm having fun with it, and I'm keeping it that way. Just the other day, I was just practicing at the same time that some of these legends guys were practicing for Indy that they ran on Saturday, and actually on Thursday I was at top of the charts, and maybe I should have raced, but nevertheless, I can, I probably won't embarrass myself too bad.
Who's the best trash talker amongst all the legends?
Both of you guys.
No, of the drivers.
Oh, funny we don't have Bobby Unser in there.
All right.
Yep.
That is greatness.
Uncle
So would
Bob.
that be your choice? Bobby Unser is the best trash talker?
Oh, he'd do all right.
Over AJ Foyt?
He would hold his own, yeah, for sure. Oh, AJ, yeah.
When you guys get around the table at Indy and everybody's talking in the little bar there, you hold your own in the trash talking, because there's a lot of stuff flying across the table.
Oh yeah, and the stories get better and better every year. Obviously, we get more and more creative. But yeah, that's fun to reminisce. That some of the time we had some fun. Along the way. Yeah, we're getting serious, but also I think we have stories to tell for sure. We're doing a lot of stupid things, but they were kind of cute.
Like fishtails, guys get faster and faster the older they get, huh?
Indeed. Yeah, you got it.
Mario, last year was your 50th celebration of your Indy 500 win in 1969. You had so many people doing so many tributes to you. What was one or two that really stood out, maybe emotionally or funny-wise?
Well, anyway, all of it. I mean, just being there and feeling that all of a sudden, somebody remembers, that I raced. I mean, I won here 50 years ago, so that was a compliment in itself. But the whole month of May was just phenomenal, and just even receiving the baby Borg and all of that, was a big thing, because all I had to show for it was a plaque up to then, as far as the trophy. Like I said, there were so many things that I thought were really touched me in so many ways, and I think the exhibit at the museum really topped it all. What they did there, and the participation from so many people that still own cars that I drove, and the displays there were really amazing, quite honestly. So the museum really did a phenomenal job. So that's something that lasted there for a long time. I mean, the display was there from, I think, April until November. And so I thought that was a great compliment to me for sure.
I got one, Mario. I think it was 1977, Long Beach. You won that race, that Formula One race, right?
Yes, I did. Yes.
What do you remember from that race and that time of running the downtown streets of Long Beach outside of the adult bookstores on the corner? And what do you remember about that race back in '77?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, it's always important for, I knew that I had a competitive car, and for any driver in Formula One to be able to win your home Grand Prix is a big feather on the cap, because it's obviously a very international series, and there's something very special about that. So that was one. And then the fact that, I chased Jody Scheckter, the entire race, basically, and he was so much quicker than me on the straightaway. And so, on the braking was going to be daunting. And I studied and studied and studied, and I figured it's going to be do or die on the last lap. And then I went from sixth to first, going into and I think as a photo, he's looking at me, you figure, holy mackerel, where the heck did he come from, But somehow it worked, and it was incredibly satisfying. And then what was more satisfying also about the season in itself was the fact that later on, I won the Italian Grand Prix as well. So I won my home Grand Prix and also my native Grand Prix, and a lot of people didn't realize it. Even just a couple of years ago, I realized that myself. I said, oh, you know what? A great couple of races there for me. And but things like that are very, very meaningful. And Long Beach has been really good to me, as you know, not just that, but IndyCars as well. And just even the first race there, I was there for the first race with Formula 5000. We were on pole, and then we broke a half shaft. But I mean, great memories. And then Long Beach being the first IndyCar win for Michael as well. So as a family, as you can see that, we got derived a lot of wonderful things from that event. And I just love going there. Just another one. It was so sad that been canceled for this year, but looking back, a lot of pleasant and wonderful memories for sure.
I want to bring another memory out because I've told this story many times of you driving your Lotus that you won the championship in. That it was at Watkins Glen, and you got in the car and were driving it with just a helmet and a windbreaker. And they tried to slow you down and saying that, hey, that's too fast. And he said, well, you have to get something, do what you have to do, but I'm about to go faster. Do you remember that story? Is that for real?
Well, that's the problem, when I'm asked to get into a sort of a vintage car, if you will. And in this case, it was something that I was familiar with. And so basically what they had the worksheets, from that car, from when I drove it, but they couldn't run the skirts. So I was out there, and I just figured, you know what, I'm going to set this thing up for was it Dayton?
Yeah, I think it was Duncan Dayton.
Duncan Dayton, yeah,
Yes.
I would say Duncan Dayton, and so I kept going. They said, "Well, we have no safety, no corner work." I said, "This, don't worry, But we kept going faster and faster with that thing because I just working on ride heights and the low balance. Some of the things that I knew would work, and he went out there. I think he was winning some races after that. Made it a lot easier for him. So I had a lot of fun doing that.
Give us another crazy track story. I mean, you're talking about how you're out there going nuts, no safety workers. Give us something else that you can, that's, I guess, radio friendly.
Well, I don't know about crazy stories. The one thing that I resist is really, I'm asked different times, to get into some of these older cars and so forth. And I was in in Donington in England some years back, and Lotus had the Lotus 49, that I drove back in 1968, and so the problem is when I go out, they say, "Oh, just take it easy," but you don't. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, you know what? I can do the braking a lot later, and Lord and behold, the brakes somewhat failed. Actually, there were only one wheel was braking, and I did a couple of 360s. I figured, now I'm going to be killed. Let's do an exhibition. You know what I mean? So, I gave everybody a thrill. I didn't hit anything, But the point I'm making is that's how dangerous it can be sometimes, But and that's why as I say, those races are. Vintage races are very much controlled. Like in the first lap, you can't pass anybody. Well, don't tell me about it. If I'm so I'd rather stay home.
Seriously,
Mario, when you got into racing and then you started racing in Formula One, like your freshman year, sophomore year, when did you start to gain respect from other drivers in Formula One that, like, this kid's got the chops to be a big time driver? And who showed you the most respect, I should say?
Well, Kenny, here's the thing. I was very fortunate because I tell this story many times, but it's very important regarding Formula One. In '65, as a rookie in Indy, obviously, finished third, and Jim Clark won, and of course I got to meet him and Colin Chapman. So at the banquet, we were saying our goodbyes, and I said to Colin, Colin, someday I would like to do Formula One. And Colin said, Mario, so when you think you're ready, you call me, and I will have a car for you. Can you imagine how I felt that evening? I was on cloud nine. And 3 years later, after obviously getting him, doing quite a bit of road racing, I lobbied like crazy at USAC to have road racing. In fact, in '65, in the middle of the season, they had a road race, at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, which I won. It was the only race that I won that year, and I won the championship actually. My rookie year, and then in '66, '67, '68, they had more and more road races, including Riverside. We had Saint Jovite, Mossport, so anyway, in all those road races, I really, I just wanted to, go for it, and there was a lot of it was between Dan Gurney and myself, quite honestly, and then, but what helped me was the Ford GT program, the Le Mans program, because I got to do so much testing and so forth. And I felt in '68, I think I want to give it a go. And I felt I wanted to do the last two races of the season, Italy and Watkins Glen. And Colin said, yes, got you. And in Italy, set up a test. And 1 week before, Chris Amon was there with Ferrari. And as soon as I got into Formula One, I really felt right. It felt good for me. Just the agility of the car, the response, lighter, braking, everything. I figured, oh my God, this is really nice. And because up to now, I'd driven heavy sports cars, and the Indy cars obviously are not as agile and as nimble as Formula One on the road course because of the fact that, they're very versatile cars. But anyway, I did well there, but the problem with in Italy, if you want me to ramble on, I'll tell you the story.
Oh, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Please do.
With Italy, I had to come back the Saturday before the race to run the Hoosier 100 because I was going for the championship. So, and there to be able to qualify. Quick we go. I only had, there they had 4 practice periods, and the fastest time of any of those periods, Friday or Saturday, was your qualifying in those days. So I only had the first session on Friday to qualify it, and I got Bobby Unser. I got him a ride with BRM, and so he and I could do some slipstreaming to get the speed. And actually, when we left there, I was 1.7 seconds quickest. But by the time it was over, I was 7th on the grid. And Bobby and I had to come back to the States. We, obviously afternoon plane, and we ran the Hoosier 100. I finished second to Foyt, and we went back to Italy. And we got there an hour before the race. And and my car was on the grid. We were 7th, as I told you. And then there was a protest. There was a protest where, and we think I never could certify, but I think it was Ferrari that protested because Colin Chapman was at the meeting and he couldn't speak a word of Italian. So, he was, so they did not let us start. So the long and the short is my absolute debut was Watkins Glen, a couple of weeks later. And of course, a lot of people thought, it's your home track. I had never seen the Glen. I never, the first time actually I was on it was with a race car.
Oh.
And I put the car on pole. So you talk about, gaining some respect. That was a good start for me, as you can imagine, because who was second to me was Jackie Stewart. So because I think especially in American drivers don't rate very well in the eyes of a lot of the European teams, but it's all about proving yourself. It's the onus is on any of us to do it. And the great thing about my experience is that I was fortunate enough to be with top teams. When I drove for Lotus, I had, the car had, it was the potential, to do that. But it felt great because, my teammate, Graham Hill at the time, he was 4th, on the grid. And so that was a good thing for me. Then the first race that I won in Formula One was for Ferrari in South Africa. And then a couple of weeks later, and then here again, Jackie Stewart finished second there, and he was basically the yardstick at the time, and like Foyt was when I broke into IndyCars. And then a couple of weeks later, I had a non-championship race in Ontario, California, with a 2 100-mile heats, and there, I had, it was on a Sunday, but on a Saturday, I was running an IndyCar race in Phoenix. So I had to qualify, and really it was in a hurry, and qualifying Lothar Mochenbacher. I don't know if you remember that name. It's like a Can-Am and so forth. I was trying to pass him, while we're qualifying. He put me out in the gravel, and I got into the guardrail. And I did some damage to the front. So the bottom line is I had to start last. And I won that. I won the first heat. And then and Jackie Stewart finished second. And I won the second heat. And Jackie Stewart finished second. And, everyone was there, including there were Formula 5000 cars driven by AJ. I think Bobby Unser actually... the Formula 5000 cars were very quick. And I know that Mark Donoghue finished 3rd in that race, believe it or not. And they had the Formula One teams there, So again, I had some great times only because I was with the top team. That's why I would just love to see some youngster like Colton Herta, and we talk about it. And he has his sights to Formula One, obviously, as you know, he was in Europe, racing with 15 years of age by himself. He was still going to school, and he knows most of the tracks there. And that kid's got something special going for him, and I would love to see him get a try with one of the top teams, not with the middle of the field team. That's the whole trick. If you get a test with a Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes, that would be the way to evaluate an American driver, to go there. Because quite honestly, with COTA, we're having the Grand Prix here solid for the foreseeable future. Would be so awesome for Formula One. Not just for America to be represented as a, with a driver, but also for Formula One to have an American driver there. I think it would do wonders to increase the fan base, quite honestly. I think the timing will be great right now, quite honestly. And not that I want to take Colton away from Michael's team,
Right.
When we talk about it, I think, Colton's got a lot of racing ahead of him. But I just pick one that I think I just have a feeling they would be one to really carry the ball properly.
That is interesting. So some people, it seems like a lot of people actually have really gotten used to the fact that IndyCar is just going to be an international series as well. And it should be, because it's diverse talent from all over the world. But there are some people that still say we need more Americans. So would it hurt IndyCar if Colton went full-time over to Formula One, even though it would benefit Formula One?
Well, in some ways it would be a loss for sure, because the young lad, look at what he's done in his rookie season. He won 2 phenomenal races and not on strategy. He won them on speed. When he won at Coda, of course, he was chasing Will Power, and then Will Power dropped out, but he was right on his heels and he was there to collect. So, I was a bit lucky, but it was still good. And then what he did at Laguna Seca, to me, was so impressive, because he had 2 of the very best, chasing him the entire race, between Scott Dixon and Will Power. There's no one better in Indy cars at the moment. And I tell you what, he never put a wheel wrong. And I was truly impressed. So when you have that kind of talent, that's championship material, period. And that's why, and he's good for IndyCar for sure, no question. I was, as a fan, I look forward to, I couldn't wait for the season to start just to see how everyone would fare, and whether even Marco, will become a force to be reckoned with in there, because, he's got the talent, it's just somehow got to pull it out of him, and I have all the faith in the world that, we've yet to see the best of him. So every year I just have those hopes. So unfortunately, everything has been delayed, but now, we'll just restart again. So a lot of excitement that's going with it. I cannot wait, for the first wheel to turn in IndyCar this season.
Statman, you want to ask Mario that question in regards to meeting folks?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about someone having a favorite person they wanted to meet. And it just dawned on me that who did Mario, when you came on board, who did you want to meet? Who do you remember meeting that really changed your career, changed your life, or just gave you great satisfaction?
Well, I wanted to meet a lot of people, but I was too shy to go forward. I always wanted to meet the big ones, and sometimes, if somehow you attract the attention from one reason or another, it's a great feeling. I think all along the one thing that I'll never forget, when I first met Bill France Sr., for instance, when I first went down to Daytona for the 24-hour 66. He invited me to his office, and he said, I'm welcoming you to our side of the world and all that. What a feeling, and then, meeting, icons like, Tony Hallman, for instance. He was such a gracious man. And to have people like that sort of know that they know that you exist, is just that in itself, I think, is huge. And so as you go on, like I said, you want to meet the driver, but you want to pretty much meet him on the track more than anything. That you don't want the other drivers to know too much about you, or you might everybody guessing from that standpoint.
Tell us the first time you met AJ. That must have been.
Oh gosh, first time probably was ready to tear my head off. I think we got together at Phoenix, and and I'm sure it was my fault, but I was scared. I was scared. The only thing that I knew that I could run faster than him. Uh, Other than that, but yeah, AJ and I had a few moments, but mostly good. But it was great. Now we're good buddies right now.
Well, Mario,
There was a lot.
Go ahead, Crasher.
No, I was going to say there was a lot made of trying to make you and the Unser family at each other throughout the decades. But then as this book came together for John Andretti, it's almost like a lot of that was media driven. Granted, you're always going to have rivalries on the track, but behind the scenes, even if there were some days that you weren't agreeing on things, behind the scenes, it's still a racing family, isn't it?
Oh yes, for sure. I mean, you're talking about Bobby and myself. Is that what Well, a lot of people. Yeah, I think it's been written and taken out of context, quite honestly, because from day one, obviously, I will never accept the ultimate decision, but the ultimate decision was what USAC allowed,
Right.
and USAC allowed outside by pressure from. The lawyer that Roger Penske brought on the scene, I guess a very well-known sports lawyer that intimidated some of those dudes in the Midwest there. And he dictated pretty much what the ultimate decision was going to be on this situation. And after 6 months of searching, for what really happened, depositions after depositions and so forth. The ultimate result was, yes, he did pass 11 cars under the yellow, end of story. And so the final decision from the three judges, there was two outsiders entirely. Then there were two CEOs, one, I think in Chicago, one from LA. And the third one was Charlie Brockman, who was a radio personality in Indianapolis. And he abstained. And the other two made a decision that under these circumstances, the penalty was too severe. So they fined him $40,000 and gave him the race back 6 months later. Well, the following year at the drivers' meeting, I confronted Tom Binford, who was, a race director. And after the meeting, I said, Tom, are the rules the same this year as last year? He said, yep. I said, so hypothetically, if today I pass 11 cars under the yellow and cross the finish line first, is the fine still $40,000? Oh, no. Oh, he says, well, Mario said, that's not my fault. He said, obviously, he's the one that penalized them. He said, but I was overruled, so I understood. And but I said, basically, so the rule will apply this year, but didn't apply last year. That's really what it was. So mine is this. I never held that against Roger or Bobby because they did whatever they had to do, to do it. I held it against USAC, and I will forever. And so Bobby, I think was out of guilt. He wasn't talking very much, but we always, chatted, but it was cool. But he always thought that I was really, that I never got over it. I definitely, like I said, I'll never get over it, but I never held it against him though.
Mario, we've been doing this for 20 years, and you've been doing it for over 50, and it's fantastic that you're able to join us for this. And one quick question: one of the big things that people ask about, are we still worthy of carrying your jockstrap?
You bet. Yeah,
Do you remember?
Just be careful with it.
Go on. Did you make? Okay, wait. Did you make Mario say that on our voicemail recording, Kenny? Or Mario, did you come up with that on your own?
I think I gave him a script, and
yeah, I just read it.
Oh,
But
why
don't
am I
forget to
so
take us to
weak?
lunch. Don't forget to take us to lunch.
And I'll take you out to lunch. Oh my gosh. Well, buddy, it's no good way to end this thing other than thank you very much for what you've done, not just for us, but for the racing community and this planet, buddy.
Let's keep her going. Look forward to
Yes.
seeing you guys.
We'll do another 20 years?
Absolutely.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Mario, thank you, bud.
Yes.
Congrats,
Thank
guys.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.